Hi everyone. Today we are going to discuss about Keynes' psychological law of consumption function. See, whenever we'll get income, we'll be consuming it, a part of that, and a part of it will also be saved. So, Keynes, in his famous work General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, published and one of the most important theory of consumption known as psychological law of consumption function or absolute income hypothesis. Now, consumption. This theory explains the relationship between consumption and income. Keynes introduced this law of consumption basically to analyze the relationship between consumption and income. According to this theory, whenever there is an increase in income, people will consume more. But the proportion of increase in consumption won't be equal to the proportion of increase in income. That's it. So, Keynes' concept of consumption function stems from the fundamental psychological law of consumption, which states that there is a common tendency of the people to spend more when their income increases. But income, this increase in consumption won't be in the same proportion to the increase in income because a part of income will also be saved. So Y is equal to C plus S. Y is income. It is a sum of actually consumption and savings. That is why whenever there is an increase in income, there will be increase in consumption, not to the same extent, but by a less than proportion. So why this is known as a psychological law? Because it basically deals with the psychological aspirations of the people residing in a particular state. Their decisions, their tendency, their preference to consume matters. So the psychological law of consumption states that as income goes on increasing, consumption also increases, but at a less than proportion. In other words, we can say that, see, when there is a change in income, consumption will also changes. So the proportion of change in consumption and income has been given here as MPC, that is marginal propensity to consume, tendency to consume more when there is an extra income, and that has been denoted as delta C by delta Y. Change in consumption due to change in income and its value as per Keynesian opinion, the value of MPC will always range in between 0 and 1. Now, Keynes recognized that now in this theory, there are many subjective and objective elements are playing an important role. That is why whenever there is a change in income, people are consuming a part of it and the rest is used for savings also. So, subjective and objective factors including interest rate, wealth, influence the level of consumption expenditure. He emphasized that it is the current level of income on which the consumption spending of an individual and society depends. The current level of income. So, this theory is all about the current level of income of the people. Now, Keynes' psychological law of consumption is based on the following main principles, propositions. When the total income of a community increases, consumption expenditure of the community will also increases, but less proportionately because the rest has been saved. That's it. Now, the second thing is it follows from this that an increase in income always bifurcated into spending. So, increase in income, change in income is actually the sum of change in consumption or change in spending plus change in savings. An increase in income will thus lead to an increase in both consumption and savings. This means that with the increase in income in the community, we can't normally expect a reduction in the total consumption or reduction in savings. A rising income will often be accompanied by increased savings, and a falling income is by decreased savings. So the rate of increase or decrease in savings will be greater in the initial stages of increase or decrease of income than in the later stages. So during the initial stages, we can say that there will be the rate of increase or decrease in savings will be greater in the initial stages and than in the later stages. Now, the amount of aggregate consumption depends mainly on the amount of aggregate income. So this particular statement give certain insights. What are they? We'll see. So in the above statement about consumption behavior, Keynes makes the following points. He suggests that consumption expenditure depends mainly on absolute income of the current period, that is, consumption as a positive function of the level of income. So, according to Keynes, consumption is a positive function of the level of income. That is his first proposition. Keynes points out that consumption expenditure do not have a proportional relationship with income. So, Keynes' consumption function can be expressed as the following, that is C is equal to A plus BY, where A is autonomous consumption, B is marginal propensity to consume, and Y is disposable income after deducting all the taxes. See, A is actually the autonomous consumption. It means that even if our income is zero, people will consume because consumption cannot be avoided. We have to consume certain things to have a good life, to stay in, to live, right? So here A is actually the positive constant where people will consume whenever their income is zero or even negative. So that is what is mentioned here. C is consumption expenditure. Y is the real disposable income, which equals gross national income minus taxes. A and B are constants, where A is the intercept term, that is the amount of consumption expenditure at zero level of income. Thus, A is autonomous consumption. The parameter B is the marginal propensity to consume, which measures the increase in consumption spending in response to the change in income. Okay, now so MPC is equal to delta C by delta Y. Now Keynes' consumption function has been given here in this particular figure. See, income is given here on the x-axis and consumption and savings here on the y-axis. See, this 45-degree line shows the proportionate change in income. So here in this figure, we can say that income is increasing in a constant proportion. And here, this is a saving function. C is a saving function where C is the consumption function. C is the consumption function, which means that whenever there is an increase in income, consumption will also increases. But this is not equal to the increase in income. See, during the initial stage, income is zero here, but that time also there is consumption. This portion, see, whenever income is zero, there is consumption. So this portion that actually denotes autonomous consumption. And when income increases, consumption also increases. B is the point of intersection where income and consumption both are equal. So this is the Y1 level of income where consumption is equated with consumption. So till this much we can't see any kind of savings. Now after that what had happened is income is increasing, consumption is also increasing, but increase in consumption is not equal to the same, not matching with the increase in income. So here this is the when income increases from Y1 to Y2, consumption is also increasing. But see the difference here, A1, Y2 is the total increase in income, but consumption increased only till C1, C2. So this gap, there is a gap between income, total increase in income and total increase in consumption. So this gap is actually the savings. That means Y is equal to C plus S. That means whenever there is an increase in income, consumption also increases. But during the same time, the remaining portion, that is income that is not consumed, that remaining portion will also saved. So this A1, C1 is actually the savings. Okay, when again income increases from Y2 to Y3, what had happened here? Consumption is also increasing, income is also increasing. Now here we can say that consumption increased only till C2, Y3, but income, see the difference here, income is A2, Y3. So till that portion, C2, Y2, this is the only consumption here. So again, there is again a saving gap, that is A2, C2 is a saving gap. So it means that whenever there is an increase in income, consumption will also increase, but by a lesser proportion. The remaining portion will be used for savings. This is what is meant by Keynes' psychological law of consumption function. So the behavior of consumption expenditure as preserved by Keynes implies that marginal propensity to consume, which is measured by the slope. So here in this figure we can say that when we draw the slope here, so here the slope of consumption function will give us the marginal propensity to consume. So the slope of here, when we take here, we can say that that point C1, so we'll get the slope also. That means when we draw a we can draw a slope like this. So this much will be, say, consumption, that this will be the change in income. So that slope is actually that slope denotes marginal propensity to consume. That means the slope of consumption function curve. The slope of consumption function will give us actually the marginal propensity to consume. As income increases, consumption does not increase proportionately, and income falls, consumption does not fall proportionately, as people seek to protect their earlier consumption standards. See, whenever there is an increase in income, consumption will also increase. But during certain situations, due to some unexpected contingencies, or due to flood, or due to war or something like that, income can also decrease. So when income decreases, consumption won't decrease that much, because people, they always want to keep the kind of standards, consumption levels. So on the basis of this increasing proportion of savings with the increase in income, the emergence of the problem of demand deficiency. So there are different problems can also be emerged. Basically, the problem of demand deficiency. So this is all about Keynes' psychological law of consumption function. Thank you.